The Merchant of Venice, right? Which you go online and you just find thousands and thousands of articles. And of course, one of the debates is it anti-Semitic? Is it not anti-Semitic? Is it simply a product of its time? Is the character truly a villain? Though there's parts that one would say that he's not a villain. He's expressing he's expressing things that are humanitarian. He's part of humanity. What's the argument to say that The Merchant of Venice was not anti-Semitic?
I should start this by saying I think the play as written is anti-Semitic.
Okay.
I think, yeah. And I think that it is at the same time highly possible, and many successful productions have been done which are not anti-Semitic. I think there's a difference between the text and the ways you can perform and interpret the text. I think the arguments that one can make that it's not anti-Semitic are, as you say, that Shakespeare does give Shylock this incredibly sympathetic and rational and tragic speech where he's rightly furious about the terrible anti-Semitic treatment he's had from the Christian characters. When he makes the point about the common humanity between Jews and Christians. If you prick us, do we not bleed? That he compares all the different organs, faculties, emotions, and experiences that Jews and Christians have. And there is no comparable speech in early modern drama. This is unique in the sort of the sympathetic, tragic, and nuanced portrayal of a Jewish character that sits in the middle of what I think is an anti-Semitic play. You also have there's some very moving moments when Tubal, who is another Jewish character who's Shylock's friend, has been trying to trace Jessica, who has eloped with Lorenzo, and says rather tactlessly that Jessica has exchanged a turquoise ring for a monkey that she wanted to buy. And there's a moment where Shylock says, oh, the turquoise, I had it of Leah when I was a bachelor. I would not have given it for a wilderness of monkeys. And we get this little vignette there, Leah, maybe that's his late wife. It's a very moving little moment. And so what I find interesting is, as so often with Shakespeare, it's not a simple portrayal. There are lots of really anti-Semitic bits in the play, which is kind of unsurprising for the time. But then you get this much more complex emotional challenge to the plot of the play by making Shylock so tragic at this moment. And it's that reading which has tended to interest actors more since the late 19th century in England. But if it's done properly, I think the play should be very uncomfortable, because the kind of Christian plot and the tragedy of Jewish identity really, really kind of trouble and mess each other up.
You say that it's possible to portray Shylock where it's not tremendously overtly anti-Semitic. Let's just go to, I guess, the presentation that is extremely anti-Semitic, and that's how it was done by Nazi Germany and how they portrayed the Merchant of Venice, which from my reading, I was pretty popular during Nazi Germany.
Yes. And so one huge change that comes in Germany and then in Austria and other countries which the Nazis occupy is that, pretty unsurprisingly, until then, Jewish artists and actors have been really important to the cultural life of those nations. And the Nazis take steps really quickly to ensure that Jews aren't on mainstream stages anymore, and the Jewish influence on theatre is massively diminished. Fairly unsurprisingly, under Nazi ideology, Shylock becomes an anti-Semitic caricature, and the play is a comedy. It's a comedy, and Shylock is the butt of the joke. So there's a very famous 1943 production in Vienna during the war, which is directed by a Nazi Party member and stars Werner Krauss as Shylock. And he portrays Shylock really explicitly as the Nazi idea of an Eastern European Jew in particular. So he's avaricious, he's cruel, he's physically dirty, and sympathetic lines are either cut or they're played for laughs as ridiculous, and it's intended to give people at the theatre a chance to laugh at Shylock.